has vowed to keep fighting violent extremism despite threats of U.S. military action from President Donald Trump. Trump warned of fast military intervention and an immediate halt to U.S. aid, accusing Nigeria of failing to protect Christians. The comments followed Washington's decision to return Nigeria to its countries of particular concern list for religious freedom violations. Nigeria's foreign ministry and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu rejected the claims, defending the country's record on religious tolerance. Abuja has yet to respond directly to Trump's threat, while the White House has offered no comment. All right, I'm joined now by Dr. Oscar van Heerden, Senior Research Fellow at Center for African Diplomacy and Leadership at University of Johannesburg. Good to have you, and thank you very much, Doc, for coming on this afternoon. They are not yet, I suppose, on a collision course diplomatically, but there seems to be some tension that's certainly brewing. Is there a pattern here that we are beginning to see? South Africa accused of white genocide without any shred of evidence. Now it's Nigeria accused of violating religious freedoms, again, without any shred of evidence being presented. Just Senator Cruz saying, this is what I feel is happening. They're killing Christians there in Nigeria. And then Trump responding to say, we'll possibly look at sending the military there. What do we read into this tactic that the Trump administration is seemingly putting towards African countries in particular?
Yeah, good day, Tava, and good day to your viewers. I mean, it's quite alarming. It's quite a dangerous thing. Many people at this point in time in the world leaders, are unsure about what to expect coming from the Trump administration and President Trump himself. That today it is that supposedly Christians are being mass murdered in Nigeria, and that he has readied the Department of War to actually give him an option to go in quick and sweet. These are the words that he's using, guns a-blazing. I think that we are seeing yet again another pattern of disruption. Trump is a disruptor. There is clearly something that his administration wants from Nigeria. I don't know what that is. It could be oil. It could be something else. And so he begins by disrupting, putting you on the back foot. And then you come running, makes a fool of you, and then says, let's negotiate. This is the pattern that is happening with Trump. And I just don't know why now suddenly is he the protector of Christians all over the world.
In terms of nominal GDP, if you look at African countries, Nigeria is in the top 4 there. South Africa, Egypt, Algeria, and Nigeria. Is it something to make of it that he would be targeting, I suppose, some of what are considered the biggest economies on the continent? South Africa at the top there, Nigeria at number 4.
No, absolutely. This is why I'm saying, Tabu. The pattern here is that he's targeting some of the big economies because that's the countries in Africa that you cannot avoid. Even if you are the number 1 economy in the world, you have to do business with Nigeria, with Egypt, with South Africa. And so I'm not surprised that there's this sudden thing with no evidence whatsoever. You would recall in your insert, you made mention of the fact that he talks of a white genocide happening in South Africa. Fortunately, we now see certain elements within the Afrikaner community that is responding and saying, not in our name. And they signed a petition. I believe it's now more than 1,000 signatures already, basically calling Trump out, saying that you're not going to lie in our names. And I think we are going to see a similar kind of response probably coming from the Nigerians.
Now, the designation seemingly is a big issue for Nigeria that they've responded to. It's the same designation that applies to nations like Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, that the U.S. is putting on Nigeria. What can we read into that about the seriousness, I suppose, of the type of threat and action that the U.S. is bringing to Nigeria?
It's an unfortunate list to be on. I mean, there's countries like Myanmar, countries like North Korea is also on that list. So I think Nigeria is taking exception to being included in that list. But the deed is done. They will have to plead their case. And as you know, even in our case as South Africans, we would likely see a delegation from Nigeria going to the United States soon to try and plead their case. And that's where the real issues are going to be put on the table, I suspect.
In a normal world, I mean, not in a Trump administration type world, a sovereign country threatening military action in another country, I suppose it's not something that is done without reason. I mean, there should be repercussions.
Well, there should be repercussions because, you know, it's not only the fact that you want to get involved in people's domestic affairs, but even dictating domestic laws. You know, Trump has weaponized the dollar, and then he is surprised when people want to de-dollarize. Trump has weaponized tariffs and trade, and then he's surprised when we look at alternative markets elsewhere. And the same here. He thinks he can threaten countries with military action, and they are going to just sit idly by. It's a very, very dangerous way to run foreign affairs, and I think the world is watching and the world is responding.
Look, it's not a secret that in Nigeria, yes, there are instances where there is violence on both sides, Islam as well as Christians, and between farmers and others. Generally, that is happening, particularly, they say, in the north parts of Nigeria. South Africa tried to say a similar thing, to say, well, look, murders are happening in South Africa generally, you know, countrywide. It's not just white people that are being killed. We were not successfully able to ward off the kind of allegation, and it still continues now and again. He's not even coming to the G20 because of what he says, serious violations that are happening in South Africa. Is Nigeria going to be able to brush this off?
I think Nigeria is going to do what Nigeria does best. There's always been tension between the Muslims and the Christians, as you say. I think the worrying factor here, and perhaps this is the element that we are not being told by the Pentagon and or the Department of War, is that they might have concerns with some extremist groups. You know, you would recall Boko Haram and the mayhem they cause in Nigeria, but also the contribution of extremist groupings that's also feeding into the Sahel region and area. And I think those might be some of the concerns. But to say that they are responding because Christians are being killed and mass murdered, I think that's a stretch of the imagination.
As you say, I mean, it's about possibly economic negotiations. Is that ultimately what this will lead to, where Nigeria would be pushed into some corner to strike a deal?
I suspect that is the point here. I suspect this is what's happening. Nigeria, besides oil, also have other things to offer and put on the agenda. It's also a key player within the region of West Africa. And for all these reasons, I think that when the president of Nigeria finally meets with Trump, I think those are the kinds of issues that are going to be on the table and not mass killings of Christians.
Dr. Oscar van Heerden, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on, Senior Research Fellow at the Center for African Diplomacy and Leadership at the University of Johannesburg.